The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales may be a terrible name for a game, but the gameplay itself is terrific. Hi everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan and welcome to my channel where I give you my honest opinion on all video games great and small. I just finished the 2-hour demo for Claytechworks' latest iteration, and I have to say I am really impressed with what I've played so far. Since the Millennium Tales is an HD 2D game, we've gotta talk about the amazing graphics first. You guys, this game blows my mind with how pretty, colorful, vibrant, and dynamic the world is. Claytechworks does a great job of using foreground and background objects as well as different elevations in the topography to establish an almost tangible depth of field, both out in the world and in dungeons and towns. It makes me feel like I really am in a place called Philadelphia. Philippus. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this game is full of terrible place names, and I wish the localization team had the power to finesse some of these names so they didn't sound quite so awful. But everything looks amazing. The rich, saturated colors are just so charming, and I love how dynamic and realistic the animations are. That includes flowers swaying in the breeze, the moving shadows of clouds passing overhead, the glitter of sand or the shimmer of water, or the way Elliot flares out his cape, tilts his chin to look up at the sky, or fiddles with his hat. These small details breathe so much life into the world of Fibulator, and I am absolutely here for it. It's not just a visual feast either. My ears are impressed with how rich and full the soundtrack is. It has a sophisticated classical style that reminds me of Dragon Quest. The music really adds to the late Renaissance, early modern aesthetic that permeates the entire world. Well, there's some robot stuff and time travel in there too, so it kind of sidesteps into Chrono Trigger territory, but that's great because we love Chrono Trigger, right? I can't say I was blown away by what little voice acting I heard. When it comes to these smaller Square Enix titles, the quality of acting can be really hit or miss. It's definitely not in the same caliber of acting you'd find in, say, Final Fantasies 12, 14, and 16, or Dragon Quests 8 and 11, but then again, those games also had really great writing, and this game, it's serviceable so far, but it's not terrible. I just wish you could limit what your fairy friend Faye, blabbers at you while you're out adventuring. What is the adventure about? Well, for now, Claytechworks is keeping their cards close to their chest. All we know is that Elliot is an adventurer who loves to cosplay as a red mage and is happy to explore uncharted magical territory for the king of Philistines. We don't know where Elliot comes from, why he hangs out with a fairy, or how he became friends with an advisor to the king. We just know he's a brave lad who has the ability to wield a range of weapons and can tap into his fairy friend's powers to overcome both enemies and obstacles. And honestly, I'm fine with this ambiguity because the point of the demo is really to get a sense of the real-time combat and exploration featured in the game. And I'm happy to tell you guys, combat and exploration are pretty great so far. First, tip of the hat to Claytechworks for giving me the freedom to choose my own path. When you start the game, there is a blue flag on the world map that helps guide you from one main quest to the next, but the story actively encourages you to ignore it by peppering your map with all sorts of treasure icons and clearly marked dungeons, one of which rewards you with an awesome weapon if you complete it. And what's great is that this map features plenty of save points you can fast travel to and recover your health at, although doing the latter will respawn nearby enemies, which I think is fair because it keeps you from spamming health while exploring dungeons. But you don't have to fast travel. In fact, it's worth walking as much as possible because it's just so much fun to interact with the environment. Elliot can not only walk around, jump from platform to platform, and climb ladders, he can also swim, which prevents him from using his weapons when an enemy is nearby, but can get him to his destination quicker. Better yet, he can use Faye's power to either quickly warp to an out-of-reach area, or warp away from an attacking enemy, which is cool. He can also use her powers to fly full speed ahead, a feature that is fun but needs work. It's actually really hard to control Elliot when using this spell, which created a moment of real frustration while navigating an environmental puzzle mid-demo. Oh, speaking of environmental puzzles, Elliot can also use bombs to access rooms or blow up enemies, cut grass or smash open barrels and pots to get extra health and coins, and collect health shards that increase his overall health. If that sounds very Zelda-esque, that's because it is. I feel like parts of this game are a loving homage to Link to the Past, and I really dig it. There's nothing wrong with taking your cues from the classics. But when it comes to combat, Elliot does things a little differently. Yes, like Link, Elliot has access to swords, a bow and arrow, and bombs, but he also has access to unique weapons like a sick chain and scythe combo, which does some serious mid-range damage and has an impressive area of effect. Swapping between weapons to match the skills and range of different types of enemies is really fun because it adds a strategic element to the gameplay that keeps things fresh and interesting. I couldn't just use a vanilla sword all the time, and I appreciate that. I wish the game would let me quickly cycle through my inventory of war instruments, but alas, the user interface isn't great, and you can only assign one primary and one secondary weapon at a time. If you want to swap weapons, you have to pause the action and bring up the menu, and I have to say the UI feels a little clunky when you do this. I'd like just a couple of more hotkeys, please. That said, I do appreciate that you can manipulate the stats of each weapon with magical shards known as magicite. These shards are color-coded and work in tandem, and you can actually organize them into different sets, which means there are all sorts of intriguing combinations we players can come up with to turn our sword or our sickle into weapons of mass destruction. And when combined with accessories, I'm guessing Elliot is going to be a formidable opponent to all. That's not to say this game is a cakewalk. Enemies really are very unique, and they're actually pretty smart. They distance themselves when they're injured, and they won't just stand there waiting for you to hit them should you mosey on up to them rocking a sword. Rodents plant detonators and hurl bombs at you. Flying chickens will hover over chasms that deplete your health if you try to follow them into the abyss. Robots will repair themselves if you don't fully dispatch them, etc., etc. It's also worth noting that enemies can roll anywhere from 2 to 4 or more deep, and the only way to survive this onslaught is to block incoming attacks with your shield, which will stun enemies should you block at just the right moment. And if a shield doesn't work, a bomb usually does the trick, and it's pretty satisfying watching the enemy count go from 5 to 1 in just a few seconds. And as I said before, having the right weapon for the right job is really the best way to go about things. While exploring one maze-like dungeon, I found myself really struggling against enemies who kept maneuvering out of reach whenever I charged them with my sword. But once I got my cool chain and sickle weapon, I was able to tear through them like tissue paper. A reminder not to neglect Elliot's inventory, and that includes tinkering with different skills. Whether that's turning a cluster of weeds into a bomb or stunning enemies with a massive foot stomp, I love exploring my options. It keeps things spicy. And that's kind of how I would describe the overall demo. I've been craving something that's both nostalgic and new, something that keeps me on my toes, and I didn't know quite how to reconcile that. But the Adventures of Elliot gives that sense of anticipated nostalgia shape, and I can't wait to play this game when it comes out in 2026, I guess? Did you like the demo? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later.